Bingo!
I'm your huckleberry.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do another paint tutorial video. A buddy of mine dropped off a gun with me yesterday, and before I started recording I was looking at it trying to figure out how to take the fucking thing apart. And I got a little ahead of myself, and I pretty much got the entire thing broken down, save for a few parts that I have to remove, like the trigger and hammer. But here are some of the parts involved. Here's the receiver, upper and lower. Here's the handguard. The total shotgun before disassembly can be seen here. And we're going to be doing a gold metallic battle-worn finish. So, looking at the shotgun, it did take a little bit of head scratching on disassembly. I was able to find a video that really helped out, and I'll annotate that here in case any of you also have the G-Force Arms GF99 Deluxe. So when he dropped the shotgun off with me, he told me he's giving me complete creative control over the paint job. He just wants something. He wasn't really interested in a camo pattern, so he wanted something kind of loud and metallic-y. So they joked about it being gold. He gave me control, so gold it is. And we're going to see how this thing turns out. So I'm thinking on the lower, let me go ahead and put this thing kind of together so you guys can get an idea of it. I'm not going to completely assemble it because it takes a fucking hammer. Alright. So here's kind of a basic what it looks like when assembled. Okay. And that gives you guys a pretty good idea. One thing I found during disassembly I do not like about this shotgun, when you take the pistol grip off, you find out that the receiver's not threaded. It is being held in place by a nut, which was the reason I had to do total teardown on this thing. So we're going to have to completely disassemble it, degrease it, go ahead and get a good base coat on it, and see where we go from there. But I had to completely take it down, including hammer and trigger removal, to get the nut back in when I replaced the pistol grip. I didn't want to paint it because it is rubberized, and I didn't want to tape it off because I really don't like doing that. If it's removable, I'd rather just pop it off so it doesn't get paint on it. So what I'm kind of thinking here, this thing also has like this crazy faux muzzle brake that goes on the end of the barrel. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to leave the grip black. There's a natural line here in the mold of the stock. I'm going to tape off there, so from there back, the stock will remain black. The receivers and the handguard will be gold. And then I'm probably going to go ahead and do this gold as well, but leave the barrel and the little, I don't know, I wouldn't call that a mag tube, but I guess you call it the recoil guide rod for this shotgun. We're going to leave that black as well. So it should end up being a nice two-tone, battle-worn gold paint job. Let's go ahead and finish disassembly, and when I get ready to spray, I'll come back and show you guys the process for base coat. For disassembly and degreasing, I'm going to do a lot of that off camera, but it's just going to involve getting brake clean, spraying this thing out with brake clean in my air compressor to make sure there's no debris in it. Then I'll do a final prep with Scotch-Brite to kind of scuff up the surface so paint will adhere better, and then I'll clean it with alcohol before we spray. So let me go ahead and finish degreasing it and getting it all cleaned up and prepared, and I'll see you guys for the base coat. See you in a moment. Alright guys, so I've got everything cleaned, prepped, and taped the way I want it. As you can see on the receiver here, we have the stock portion taped off because I'm going to keep that black. Everything else I've got exposed, I've got it sanded a little bit so it's got a nice finish to adhere to, and I've got everything stripped down to make sure there's no oil left on the surface so that I can make sure the paint adheres. Typically with like an AR-15 or something, I would want to make sure that no paint gets inside, but with a shotgun, typically what I have found, the tolerances are much larger, so a little coat of paint on the inside is not going to be a big deal, but I'm not going to try to spray heavy on the inside. Mostly just going to focus on the sides, but if a little overspray gets on the inside, that's not a big deal. So there's the lower receiver. Here I've got the upper receiver. Got this portion taped off, one so I can use it as a handle, but mainly because I do not want to paint that part black, or gold rather. This is a little bit trickier. I'm going to have to get like a metal clothes hanger or something to hang this with so I can spray it. And then of course the same for the for the faux muzzle brake that goes on the end. Also going to paint that gold. I'm going to have to hang that up to spray it. Or I may be able to find something to slip it over and spray it, and then flip it over and spray the opposite side. That's probably going to be the best bet for that. I'm just going to have to figure something out. I've got my spray paint here. This is what I'm going to be using. This is VHT engine enamel in gold. I'm going to spray everything, get it a good base coat, and then on the metal parts, I'm actually going to put them in the oven for about half an hour at about 150 to 175 degrees to fully cure this paint. I'm not sure what temperature this polymer is resistant to, so I'm not going to bake it, but I will be running over this pretty heavily with a hairdryer to make sure that paint gets as best chance as possible of fully curing and hardening. So let me go ahead and get started, guys. I'll try to move the camera. Maybe I can set it up where you guys can actually see me spray this thing, if that matters. But give me a second. I'll see you in a moment. Alright, so hopefully you guys can hear me pretty well. As you can see, I've got the hand guard here. I've got it hanging on a hook. What I'm probably going to do is paint this from this angle, let it dry, flip it over and paint it from the other angle so that I don't have to touch it in between, and I can make sure I get full coverage. So we're going to go ahead now. Forgive me for the rooster sounds. Go ahead and start with a light base coat. And I'm not going for full coverage on this first pass. Just want to get paint on the entire thing. I feel like that's a pretty solid base coat to start. It's a good solid first coat. It's not the complete base coat. Let me go ahead and grab another piece. I'm going to hang this up and let it dry for a little bit. All right, I've got the upper receiver here. I'm going to go ahead and spray a base coat on this as well. And here's an idea of what I mean when I say a first coat. As you can see, it's not full coverage. And I do not want to go super heavy on that first coat, so I'm going to go ahead and call that there, grab another piece. All right, here we have the receiver. I'm going to do the same thing here. Just going to do a really light, try to get it even, and just get everything covered, but not completely saturated in paint. All right, so there we are with our initial coat for that. Let me give everything a little while to dry. I'll come back, I'll do another coat. I may not show you guys me spraying every coat just because, I mean, you really don't need to see it. It's just going to get kind of boring. So let me give this time to dry. I'm going to go hit it with a hairdryer to speed up this process. And then once I get a complete coat on every piece, I'll come back and show you guys what it looks like. See you in a moment. All right, guys, so I've got the base coat down on everything. I gave it one light coat to start, and then with 15-minute intervals, 3 more solid coats where I made sure it was completely covered. They were still light, like I didn't spray it super heavy, but I gave it light dustings until it was complete coverage, and I did that 3 more times. So now we're just waiting for this to fully cure. I wanted to show you guys how I actually painted the muzzle brake. This is just a broomstick. It happened to fit perfectly. So I just slid it down onto the end of it, and that actually was perfect because it allowed me to rotate it like this while spraying it to make sure I got total coverage. I'm going to stand that right there. I've got it leaning up against something. I'll show you how I've got the lower hanging. So I've got an old couch spring here. I've got it hanging on that, and then I've got that hanging on a punching bag stand that I have in the garage. Back here, I've got the upper receiver set. So as you can see, I've got total coverage on that. Actually came out really good. I really love this gold flake color on rifles or shotguns. And I've got this just clamped loosely in my vise just so it doesn't fall over. And give me 1 second, I'll show you the handguard. I've got that hanging off camera back here. And so for the handguard, I just took an old clothes hanger rod, bent it, hooked it on it, and then after I was confident that I had good coverage with it hanging the other direction, I flipped it, hung it this way, and gave it another set of coats. That way I have full coverage on that as well. I'm going to go ahead and hang this back up and give everything time to dry. I'll probably let it dry overnight. Then I'll unmask everything, put everything back together, and reassemble the shotgun, and I'll actually do the weathering process with the shotgun fully assembled. So I'll see you guys for that. Stay tight. Well, stay tight, but stay tuned. Alright guys, so everything finished curing, and I went ahead and unmasked everything on the shotgun, put it back together. I will say on these G-Force armed shotguns, getting that trigger and hammer back in is a little bit more complicated than an AR-15. For one, the sear spring does not want to stay in the trigger, so that's a fucking experience. And the actual hammer spring and trigger spring are just really wonky, but it does go together like an AR, so it wasn't that bad. It was just kind of annoying. So here it is. I got it all put back together. This is it with the base coat of gold. Nice two-tone finish. I think it turned out really well. He does want a battle-worn finish, so I'm going to let this thing sit for a day or two and let the paint really have time to fully cure and harden. It is dry to the touch. That's one of the nice things about metallic paint. Especially after you apply some heat, it really does dry really quickly. But we're going to let it sit for a couple days, and then I'll come back, finish out the video. We'll take some flat black spray paint, lightly dust everything on the shotgun. Then we'll take 4/0 steel wool, maybe Scotch-Brite, a washcloth, a little bit of alcohol and water. And what we're going to do is work in stages. We're going to spray a little bit of paint and then buff it back off. And so it just stays in the low-lying areas. Like right here, so in these crevices, in the cutouts here on the handguard, inside the pick rails, that's where we want things to stay. And what we're going to do is buff the paint back off the high spots so that it really brings it out and re-highlights it. You want to simulate some dust and grime, you know, just use over time and make this thing look pretty cool. So I'm kind of excited. I think it turned out really well. See you guys in the next segment of the video in a couple of days, and we'll finish this thing. See you in just a moment. Alright guys, so it's been a full day. Everything is pretty good. Got a really nice base coat on this thing. So now the next step is I'm going to be taking, where did I put the paint? Some flat black paint, a little bit of 4/0 steel wool, and maybe some 400 grit sandpaper. Got a little bit of alcohol here in a spray bottle I'm going to use to help bring it back off once I spray it. And this is going to be a relatively quick process. I'm actually kind of low on flat black paint, so I don't know if I'm going to have enough to finish this. I may have to stop, go buy more, and come back. But I want to give you guys at least an idea of how this process works. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead. The can's pretty low. I'm going to take my glasses off just so I can see a little better. Okay. We're going to come way back. And we're just going to spritz it. Now the key here is that I do not want a ton of coverage at all. I have very little coverage here. Okay. So there you can see, hopefully, that's coming through pretty well. Just a little bit of overspray, basically. So I'm going to spray my 4/0 steel wool down with a little bit of alcohol. And I'm just going to very lightly buff it back off. This does a couple of things. It highlights the high points. It leaves overspray down in the recesses, which is kind of what we're going for here. And it gives us a little bit of definition and some cool variations in color here. Go ahead and get a little more alcohol on that. And I like to work in small sections when I do this. And the key, remember, is not to scrub hard. You want to go really light. You're just trying to take some of that black back off. You don't want to take the gold off. You basically want it to look like it's been dirty and cleaned a few times. And yeah, we're getting pretty cool here. So another thing this will do is it'll take a little bit of gold off of your really high points. Give you some nice variations. Get to where you kind of feel good about it, just grab a rag. Give it a good wiping. And what we're going to be left with is something that looks like this. Hopefully the camera's picking that up. So it's still gold, but it's like a dirty use now. And this is something that I'm going to do many passes on until I get it the way I think it looks best. Go ahead here, we'll hit a little bit on this larger area. And again, pretty quickly, I want to go ahead and get most of this back off. Especially on the high points. And it's going to give us a really cool worn pattern. And if you don't like it, you can always spray more gold. So, you know, this is a kind of an experimental thing. You just have to experiment with it and see how you feel about it. But battle worn is what we're going for. So that's what we're going to get. So as you can see there, got a pretty nice finish going on. It actually hit a little bit all the way down to the bare metal, and that was just 4/0 steel wool. So you are going to get a few little high points like that, which are actually going to pop really nice. I like that. I feel like that looks pretty cool. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and do a little more off camera, and I'll come back and show you guys what I end up with. See you in a moment. All right, guys, so I'm all finished with the battle worn paint job. I'm not going to stall too long. I'll go ahead and show it to you. Here it is. I think it turned out really cool. I made a couple of very light passes like I showed you, just misting on a little bit of the flat black. And that gives it a nice kind of speckled finish to simulate age and wear. This actually turns out like more of a battle-worn bronze than a gold, which is honestly even cooler to me. So I'm really happy with that. One thing I did, and I'll show you here, it's not that hard. If you'll notice on some of these areas, like I guess here's a good spot. If you want to get it dark inside the insides of the pick rail, what you're going to do is get you one of these fine tip painter's pens. I got these at Walmart. They're dirt cheap. And all you do is you just take it, you color 2 stripes inside the line, take a little old cheap chip brush, and literally just spread it. And then you can take your finger and wipe off the outside, and that will eliminate anything that goes over what you wanted to paint. And that's how I did all the pick rails. I'm not going to make you sit there and watch me do each one of them. That would be ridiculous. But inside the pick rails, up in here in this gap, I just took the paint pen, drew along the inside, and then used the brush to spread it out, make it look old and worn. And you can do that in any area you want to add details to, like these little recesses. Each one of these, just a couple of scribbles with the paint pen, spread it with the brush, wipe the excess off the outside just with your finger, and it's perfect. This thing is completely dry now. You can rub it, it's not coming off, and I'm super happy with how it turned out. I'm going to go ahead here and cut to some photos, because I think you'll be able to see it a little better, and that'll close out the video. Hopefully this helped you out, guys. I've got plenty of other rifles and shotguns that I still want to paint. They're just completely black right now. Just having a hard time deciding what I want to do. So let me know in the comments below what kind of paint job would you like to see next, and I'll see if I can make something happen. But thanks for sticking with me to the end, guys. Thanks for checking out the video, and as always, take care of yourselves and stay safe. Peace.